Title: When the Hudson Turned Gold. A romance novel set in the United States. Chapter 1. The Girl Who Watched the Skyline. The first time Emily Carter saw New York, it didn't feel real. The skyline rose out of the morning mist like something alive. Sharp glass towers reflecting gold sunlight, bridges stretching like steel ribbons over the water, the steady pulse of traffic and voices and possibility. The city looked like it was breathing. She stood outside Penn Station, one suitcase at her feet, her heart beating too fast. This was it, new beginning. No more small-town Ohio. No more grocery store shifts. No more watching other people leave while she stayed behind. At 23, Emily had exactly 3 things. A degree in graphic design, a $4,200 savings account, and a stubborn belief that she was meant for something bigger. She didn't know yet that the city would test that belief. She definitely didn't know it would introduce her to Daniel Hayes. Daniel didn't believe in love. He believed in numbers. At 29, Daniel Hayes was already a senior analyst at a Manhattan investment firm. He worked 80-hour weeks, lived in a high-rise overlooking the Hudson River, and had built his life on control. Relationships were inefficient. Emotions were distractions. He preferred predictable markets over unpredictable hearts. But even Daniel couldn't control everything. Especially not the night their lives collided. Emily's apartment in Brooklyn was smaller than she imagined, which was saying something, because she hadn't imagined it big. The radiator clanged like it was angry. The hallway smelled faintly of takeout and detergent. Still, when she opened the single window and saw a sliver of skyline in the distance, she smiled. "I made it," she whispered. The next morning, she started job hunting. 3 interviews, 2 polite rejections. 1, "We'll call you." They didn't call. Her savings started shrinking. The city didn't care about dreams. And yet, she refused to give up. 2 weeks later, she found herself at a networking event in Manhattan. The kind where people wore black and spoke confidently about projects that sounded important. She almost didn't go. Her dress was simple, her heels slightly worn, but she went anyway. That's where she saw him. Daniel Hayes stood near the bar, dark navy suit, sleeves slightly rolled, speaking with calm authority. He wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. People leaned in when he spoke. There was something sharp about him, controlled, deliberate. Emily didn't plan to approach him. Fate didn't plan to ask. As she turned too quickly, her elbow knocked into a waiter. A glass tipped. Red wine spilled directly onto Daniel Hayes' crisp white shirt. Time stopped. Silence. Daniel looked down at the stain spreading across his chest. Emily's stomach dropped. "Oh my God. I am so sorry. I wasn't looking. I can pay for dry cleaning." Daniel looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, something in his perfectly structured world shifted. Her eyes were wide, honest, terrified. Most people would have panicked differently, defensive, embarrassed, dismissive. She just looked genuinely sorry. He surprised himself by laughing softly. "It's fine," he said. It wasn't fine. The shirt was expensive. The meeting mattered, but something about her made it fine. "I'm Emily," she said quickly, as if giving her name might somehow fix everything. "Daniel." They shook hands. Her fingers were warm. His were steady. Neither of them realized that this accidental touch would rewrite their futures. Later that night, Daniel should have forgotten her. Instead, he found himself wondering, why was she at that event? Why did she look like she didn't belong, yet somehow belonged more than anyone there? Meanwhile, Emily replayed the moment in her tiny apartment. He wasn't arrogant like the others. He didn't roll his eyes. He smiled. She hated that she remembered the way his voice sounded. Low, calm, slightly amused. She told herself it didn't matter. Men like him didn't notice girls like her. But the city was already preparing their second meeting. And this time, it wouldn't involve wine. It would involve fate. Chapter 2, Accidental Orbit. New York did not believe in coincidence. At least, that's what Emily decided the morning she received the email. She had just finished another rejection, polite, impersonal, and devastating in its efficiency, when her phone buzzed. Subject: Freelance opportunity, immediate start. She almost didn't open it. But she did. A mid-sized marketing firm in Manhattan needed a freelance graphic designer for a financial branding project. Short-term contract, competitive pay, immediate availability required. Her hands trembled. She replied in under 2 minutes. By noon, she had an interview scheduled for the next day. By 4 p.m., she was staring at the firm's address. Madison Avenue. She swallowed. Manhattan felt different from Brooklyn. Sharper, louder, more expensive in ways that weren't just financial. She stood in front of the mirrored glass building the next morning, adjusting her blazer, telling herself she belonged there. You earned this. Inside, everything smelled like polished floors and ambition. The interview went better than she expected. The creative director, Laura Kim, flipped through Emily's portfolio slowly. You have instinct, Laura said finally. Not just technical skill. Instinct. Emily tried not to cry. We'll need you starting Monday. It took everything in her not to grin like a child. Yes, she said calmly. That works perfectly. Daniel Hayes did not think about the girl with the wine stain. At least, not intentionally. But when he walked into the same Madison Avenue building Monday morning for a quarterly strategy meeting with the marketing firm's executive team, he felt a strange flicker of anticipation he couldn't explain. He stepped into the elevator. The doors began to close. And then, hold it, a hand slipped between the doors. They opened again. Emily Carter stumbled inside, slightly breathless, clutching a leather portfolio case. They froze. Recognition, surprise, and something electric. Oh, she said softly. Daniel blinked once. You again. For a split second, neither spoke. The elevator doors closed behind them. Small space. Close air. Her perfume faint and clean. You work here? He asked. Freelance. First day, she replied. You? Client. Of course he was. The universe, apparently, had a sense of humor. The elevator climbed. Neither looked at the other directly, but both were aware, hyper-aware, of the proximity. You didn't ruin any more expensive shirts this week, did you? He asked, voice calm but teasing. She glanced at him, defensive but smiling. I'm on probation. That made him laugh again. And something about hearing it, real and unguarded, made her chest tighten. The elevator stopped. Same floor. They stepped out together. That's not ominous at all, Emily muttered. Daniel tilted his head slightly. You nervous? A little. He studied her for a moment. Not in a dismissive way. Not evaluating. Just observing. You shouldn't be. The words were simple, but they landed deeper than he intended. Before she could respond, Laura Kim appeared down the hallway. Daniel, perfect timing. And then Laura's eyes moved to Emily. Oh, you've met? Daniel answered first, briefly. Emily resisted the urge to explain the wine. Emily's joining us on the rebranding visuals for your firm's campaign, Laura continued. Silence. Daniel looked at Emily. Emily looked at Daniel. This wasn't coincidence. This was alignment. You'll be working closely with our finance team to match tone and strategy, Laura added. Translation. She would be working closely with him. Daniel nodded once, composed as always. Good, he said, but inside, something unfamiliar stirred. He liked control. He liked distance. And yet the universe had just placed this unpredictable, wide-eyed, warm-hearted girl directly into his orbit. That afternoon, Emily sat in a conference room reviewing data she barely understood. Stocks, projections, market psychology. Daniel stood at the front explaining growth strategy to the creative team. He was different in work mode. Sharper, precise, controlled. But when his eyes occasionally met hers across the table, something softened. She asked a question. A good one. How do you want people to feel when they see this campaign? She said. Confident? Secure? Ambitious? The room paused. Daniel didn't answer immediately. He wasn't used to someone asking about feelings in a financial discussion. But he answered her. Safe, he said finally. In control of their future. Emily nodded slowly. That wasn't just branding. That was him. By 7 p.m., the office had emptied. Emily was still there, sketching early concepts. Daniel walked past the conference room and noticed the light on. He hesitated, then stepped inside. You're still here. She looked up, slightly startled. So are you. Touché. He walked closer, glancing at her designs. They were clean, modern, emotional in a subtle way. You work hard, he said. I have to, she replied honestly. New city, no safety net. Something in that sentence landed differently for him. He had grown up with expectations. Pressure, but never instability. Why New York? He asked. She looked at the skyline through the glass wall. Because it scares me. He didn't expect that answer. She continued softly, if I can survive here, I can survive anywhere. Silence stretched between them, not awkward, heavy, intentional. Daniel found himself wanting to ask more. About Ohio. About what she left behind. About who hurt her enough to make her this determined. But he didn't. Instead, he said something he hadn't planned. There's a coffee place downstairs. It's still open. Her heart skipped. Are you inviting me for professional networking coffee? He considered. No. Her pulse quickened. Then what are you inviting me for? His voice lowered just slightly. To see if fate spills more than wine. And just like that, the careful walls Daniel Hayes had built over years began to crack. And Emily, without even realizing it, was the reason. Chapter 3. Cracks in the Glass. The coffee shop downstairs was nearly empty. Late evening in Manhattan had a different rhythm, quieter, but heavier somehow. The kind of quiet that felt earned. Emily wrapped her hands around her cup, grounding herself. This wasn't a date. It wasn't. Daniel Hayes didn't do dates. She was fairly certain of that already. He sat across from her, jacket off, sleeves rolled slightly. Without the conference room between them, he seemed less untouchable, more human. So, she began carefully, do you always work until the building kicks you out? Most nights, he replied. It's efficient. Efficient, she repeated, amused. That's your favorite word, isn't it? He tilted his head. I prefer predictability. She smiled slightly. That sounds lonely. The word hung between them. Most people wouldn't have said that to him. Most people liked his predictability. It meant stability, money, control. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied her. You don't filter much, do you? Should I? No, he said quietly. It's refreshing. Emily felt heat rise in her cheeks and took a sip of coffee to hide it. Can I ask you something? She said after a moment. You just did. She rolled her eyes. A real question. He nodded once. Why finance? She asked. You don't seem like someone who's just chasing money. He leaned back slightly. My father lost everything when I was 16. That wasn't what she expected. The market crashed. His firm collapsed. We went from private school and vacations to selling the house in 6 months. His voice was steady, too steady. I watched what instability did to him, Daniel continued. To my mother. I decided I would never let my life depend on chance. Emily softened. That's why you need control. Yes. And that's why you don't believe in love? He almost smiled. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Silence again. Not sharp this time. Gentle. You? He asked quietly. Why design? She looked down at the foam in her cup. My mom worked double shifts at a diner. My dad left when I was 9. We didn't have much. She hesitated. But I used to draw on receipts behind the counter. Logos, posters, magazine covers. It felt like building worlds where things made sense. He watched her carefully. Design gave you control too, he said. She blinked. No one had ever framed it like that. Maybe, she admitted, they were more similar than either of them expected. Two people who hated instability. Two people who built careers around structure. And yet, she was warmth. He was glass. Outside, the city lights reflected against the window. Daniel noticed the way she looked at New York, not like someone trying to conquer it, but like someone falling in love with it. You're going to make it here, he said suddenly. She looked at him, surprised. You don't know that. I do. How? Because you're not here to prove anything to anyone, he said. You're here to prove something to yourself. Her throat tightened slightly. You're very observant for someone who claims to prefer numbers. Numbers don't lie, he replied. But people, they show patterns. And what pattern do I show? He hesitated. Hope. But he didn't say that. You don't quit, he said instead. She smiled softly. That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me in New York. He didn't realize until that moment how much he wanted to be the person who said more. They walked outside together. Cold air, yellow taxis passing, the skyline glowing like it was alive. Without thinking, she stepped slightly closer to him to avoid a fast-moving cyclist. Her shoulder brushed his arm. The contact was brief, but it wasn't accidental. Daniel felt it, that subtle shift again. Unplanned, uncontrolled, and dangerous. Because for the first time in years, he wasn't calculating risk. He was feeling something. Emily, he said, her name softer now. Yeah? He almost told her not to get too close. almost warned her that he wasn't good at this. But instead, he asked, "Dinner tomorrow? After work?" She tried to act calm, professional, neutral. "That sounds efficient." He smirked slightly. "It won't be." Her heartbeat betrayed her composure. "Okay," she said, and just like that, their orbit tightened. But neither of them knew yet. Daniel's firm was about to face a crisis. Emily's contract wasn't as secure as she thought. And love, no matter how controlled, doesn't follow market logic. The Hudson River shimmered in the distance. And somewhere between glass towers and quiet confessions, something fragile had begun. Chapter 4. The Things We Don't Calculate. Emily changed her outfit 3 times. Which was ridiculous. Because this was not a date. It was dinner. Casual. 2 adults who happened to work on the same project. That was all. Still, her heartbeat disagreed. She finally chose a simple black dress, elegant but not loud, and left her apartment before she could overthink it again. Daniel had chosen the restaurant. Of course he had. It overlooked the Hudson River, soft golden lighting reflecting off the water. The kind of place where conversations felt important. He was already there when she arrived. Standing, waiting. He didn't check his phone. He didn't glance around impatiently. He was watching the entrance. Watching for her. Something inside her softened. "You're early," she said as she approached. "So are you." They both smiled. The hostess led them to a table near the window. Outside, the river shimmered under the city lights. For a moment, neither spoke. Not because it was awkward. Because it mattered. "You clean up well," Daniel said finally. Her eyebrow lifted. "Implying I don't normally?" "I meant," he corrected calmly, "you look beautiful." There it was. Direct. Unfiltered. Her pulse jumped. "Thank you," she said softly. They ordered. Wine this time, deliberately placed far from the edge of the table. She noticed. He noticed her noticing. And they both laughed quietly. Dinner started light. Work. Brooklyn. The insanity of rent prices. But slowly, the tone shifted. More personal. More real. "Do you ever slow down?" she asked him. "I sleep." "That's not what I meant." He leaned back slightly. "No," he admitted. "I don't slow down." "Why?" He considered lying. He didn't. "Because when I stop moving," he said quietly, "I start thinking." "And that's bad?" "Yes." The honesty caught her off guard. She studied him carefully. "You're afraid of losing control again." It wasn't a question. His jaw tightened slightly. "I built everything I have by being disciplined," he replied. "Feelings complicate discipline. And what if feelings are the point?" He didn't answer that. Instead, he asked something unexpected. "What scares you?" She hesitated. "Staying average." The answer surprised him. "Explain." "I don't mean money," she said. "I mean, never trying. Never risking. Waking up at 40 wondering if I could have been more." He watched her carefully. "You won't be average. You sound very sure of that." "I am." The confidence in his voice made her stomach flip. Not because it was arrogant. Because it was sincere. Halfway through dinner, a woman approached their table. Tall, perfectly styled, polished smile. "Daniel," she said warmly. Emily felt the subtle shift in his posture. "Victoria," he replied evenly. "I didn't know you'd be here tonight." "Neither did I." The air changed. Emily didn't know who Victoria was, but she felt it instantly. History. "I was just meeting friends," Victoria continued, her eyes flicking briefly toward Emily. "Assessing." "And you are?" "Emily," she replied calmly, extending her hand. Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course," she said lightly. "Well, Daniel, we should catch up sometime." "Take care, Victoria." She walked away. Emily kept her expression neutral. She would not be insecure. She would not. But something coiled quietly in her chest. "Ex?" she asked after a moment. "Yes." "How serious?" "Serious enough." The honesty stung more than she expected. "Why did it end?" Daniel's gaze shifted to the river. "She wanted more time than I was willing to give." Silence. "That sounds lonely," Emily said softly. It was efficient. She didn't smile this time. "That's not the same thing." He knew that. That was the problem. After dinner, they walked along the river. Cold air. City lights reflecting gold across the water. For once, Daniel wasn't thinking about tomorrow's meeting. Or quarterly reports. He was thinking about the way Emily's hand brushed his as they walked. Intentional. This time, she stopped near the railing. "Can I ask something honest?" "Yes." Are you going to treat this like a risk analysis? He exhaled slowly. I don't know how to do this casually. She turned to face him fully. I'm not casual, she said. He stepped closer. Neither moved away. I don't want to hurt you, he admitted quietly. The vulnerability in his voice was new, unrehearsed. You might, she replied. That's kind of the point. His hand lifted, almost unconsciously, brushing a loose strand of hair away from her face. The touch was gentle, careful, her breath caught. This was the moment, the line between professional and personal, between controlled and uncontrollable. Emily, he murmured. Daniel. The city seemed to quiet around them. And then, he kissed her, slow, not rushed, not desperate, but certain, the kind of kiss that wasn't about impulse. It was about decision. She felt it all the way down to her toes. When they pulled apart, the skyline behind him glowed gold. And for the first time since arriving in New York, Emily didn't feel like she was chasing something. She felt like she'd found it. But love doesn't grow in perfect conditions. And somewhere across the city, Daniel's firm was preparing for a financial collapse that would test everything he believed about control. And everything they were just beginning to build.